Released by Square Enix in 2015 on the PC and PlayStation 3 and 4, Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward would be the first expansion for the Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn reboot. The main story would be continued past 3.0 during major patch or expansion updates. Before this video, only the 3.0 story campaign and Alexander raid will be covered. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a recapitation. As the chapter begins, the Warrior of Light meets with Tataru and an upset Alphino, taking refuge in Camp Dragonhead as the Scion is impatient to clear their names of assassination. Calming him down, their Ishgardian ally Orshifon brings news his father, Count Edmont, will take them in as a ward to House Fortam, allowing them entry through the Gates of Judgment into the imposing city overlooking Kurthus, the Holy See of Ishgard. Enduring over 1,000 years of war, the theocracy is now led by the Archbishop of the Ishgardian Orthodox Church, as House Fortam is but one of the 4 high houses that hold most of the influence in the city-state. Though the people are colder to foreigners than the falling snow itself, in the warmth of his manner, Count Edmont believes if they continue their service for the benefit of the people, there won't be an issue. Handing them documents before they tour their new accommodations, he warns them Ishgard has closed its borders for decades, so many of its citizens are not used to dealing with foreign visitors. Visiting the seat of government called the Vault, they also see the statues of the 12, the knights who joined with King Thordan to put down Nidhogg and found the nation. However, there is an upper and lower section of the city, housing similarly the upper and lower class of citizens who carry their own disdain for each other. Gathering information at the most popular tavern for the layman, Alphino learns the lower class are more recently sore when wyverns tore through the city recently, as it was they who bore the brunt of the attacks while the high houses and temple knights were well protected. Returning to the Count and ready to work on establishing themselves, the Warrior of Light is asked to aid Edmont's 2 sons and Orshifon's half-brothers, the serious Artoirel and the frivolous Amanelaine, despite their objections. Alphino sees this as an opportunity to not only gain good graces while in the city, but it will put them in contact with other influential people who can in turn help them find their missing allies. Speaking with Amanelaine first, standing beside his manservant Onorwa, the second son laments that his station means he is not entitled to nearly as many things as the firstborn son. Therefore, he wishes to chase more clout and at least gain more recognition than his brother, having a plan to do so in the Sea of Clouds. With the adventurers' help, they'll aid House Islandart, another of the 4 high houses, traveling to the Floating Isles and meeting with the leader of the Rose Knights. She's grateful to the Warrior of Light for saving her brother Francel from a false inquisitor earlier and shoots down Amanelaine's attempts to flirt with her. She then shares their troubles with the local beast tribe, the Vanu Vanu, who were once peaceful but now have become aggressive, interfering with the Knights' repair of their flagship airship, the Protector. After the adventurer brawls with a burly bird-like beastman, they learn a reckless Amanelaine was captured by the Vanu Vanu. After the Warrior of Light rescues him from their camp, the adventurer escorts the combat-inept noble out thanks to the help of Orshifon arriving personally with reinforcements. They are halted by their chieftain who seeks to sacrifice them to their god just as a massive white-winged whale primal makes its appearance, diving over them and swimming through the Cloud Sea itself. The Vanu cheer the appearance of the primal Bismarck while Amanelaine cowers from combat and the crew is cornered. Just in time, Sid arrives with the Enterprise to pull them out of yet another tight spot as Sid adeptly dodges a passing lunge from Bismarck on their way out, explaining he was nearby working on the Protector's repairs. Orshifon believes the summoning of Bismarck explains the sudden shift in Vanu behavior, wishing to report this urgent news to Ishgard, taking his leave. Their adventure over, the Warrior of Light and Amanelaine return to Count Edmont, who scolds his son on his embarrassing incompetence. As the second son leaves to nurse his bruised ego, the elder son Artoirel doesn't feel he needs any help with his duties, but still allows the Warrior of Light to accompany him in reluctantly aiding the other 2 high houses, House Durandare and Samael. Traveling by Black Chocobo with the ability to fly, they arrive in the Falcon's Nest outpost ready to restore the settlement. Blanketed by harsh ice and snow ever since the calamity, the frozen highlands contend with Lady Iceheart's followers as the adventurer deals with a heretic hideout near the hamlet confronted by Iceheart Izael herself. Shocked to see the Warrior of Light travel with Midgard Sormer, Iceheart reveals to the adventurer she too possesses the Echo. With it, she learned the truth about the past from the Great Worm Hrace Velgar himself, explaining dragon and man once lived together side by side. Despite the centuries of spilled blood, she intends to break the cycle of hate and restore peace between them again, withdrawing for now. Impressed by the Warrior of Light's accomplishments, Artoirel apologizes for being so skeptical before, and shares part of it came from resentment at his involvement coming from Orshifon. He explains his half-brother is a bastard son to Count Edmont, and while his mother never accepted him even on her deathbed, Artoirel agreed with her. Admitting he was also jealous of the warrior, seeing his feats and personality now firsthand, he admits his own faults and buries the hatchet, now a firm believer. Count Edmont now enters, thanking the warrior for saving the life of his youngest and collecting commendations from the other high houses. However, they are interrupted with news that Alphino and Tataru have been detained by the knights on suspicion of committing heresy and go see Sir Emmerich for more information. Greeting his friend, the Lord Commander agrees the charges are likely baseless and political in nature, but the burden of proof is still needed to clear them, as the accuser is Sir Grinno, a knight of the Heavensward. The Heavensward are the kingdom's 12 strongest knights that serve only the Archbishop with essentially unchallenged authority, even by the Lord Commander, but there is hope as the option for trial by combat sanctioned by the Inquisition can override accusation. With 2 accused, they must defeat 2 of the knights, and since Tataru is incapable of combat, will be allowed to name a champion to fight in her stead alongside Alphino. Knowing the hero of Eorzea will be their hidden ace, they enter the tribunal where their right to mortal combat is claimed and approved as the Warrior of Light wins, acquitting his friends. Returning to Forton Manor, both sons are amazed the adventurer was able to best 2 of the Heavensward elite, an act that is already the talk of the town, as the adventurer is suddenly invited to the vault to meet with the Archbishop. Quickly responding to the summon, the Warrior of Light is greeted by Archbishop Thornton VII, who knows the reputation and deeds of his guest and personally apologizes for his Heavensward falsely accusing his friend. Sir Zephyrin also apologizes on behalf of Grinno as everyone is dismissed from the room. Alone now, the Archbishop cuts to the chase and tells the Warrior of Light he has met with the Ascians as well, as they have offered Ishgard power to continue their war against the dragons. While Thornton VII doesn't want their aid at the cost of being their puppet, he did not turn them away, wishing to learn more of their true objectives. He adds he is revealing all of this precisely because they fear the Warrior of Light, and for that reason would like to work with him in defeating the Ascians for Eorzea's sake. Asking the adventurer to think about the offer, the Archbishop dismisses them for now, though as soon as they return to the manor, Tataru explains Raoban is to be executed for crimes against the Sultanate. Refusing to allow that to happen, they move to rescue the former Flame General, first traveling to Limsa Lominsa to form a plan with Admiral Merlviv, who agrees to help, adding she and the Elder Seedseer have pressured the Syndicate not to publicize the allegations against the Scions. What more, she reveals the Sultana was going to abdicate the throne, and Alphino thinks that even if Teleji would stand to gain from that, Lolorito wouldn't. These facts, combined with the fact that Ul'dan authorities are publicly claiming the Sultana is sick and Raoban has been kept alive for so long, suggest someone is likely delaying things on purpose. In addition, Raoban was recently moved somewhere else by none other than the Crystal Braves, and the Admiral thinks this all means friction between Lolorito and the Crystal Braves. Regardless, they need to find Raoban first, and so deploy their Doman allies who quickly discern the new execution location. They are joined by Yugiri as they crash the hideout, cut down the traitorous Crystal Braves, survive a poison trap, and free Raoban. They are intercepted by Ilberd, Yuyuhase, and Laurentius and best them in battle as Alphino declares they already know the truth about the assassination, and Ilberd spits back that all he ever wanted was to free Alamigo, frustrated he is no closer despite all he has done. The trio escape for now as Alphino explains the only logical reason behind Lolorito's actions so far is that the Sultana is actually still alive. As they leave, a mysterious stranger is outside waiting for them with a carriage to the Waking Sands in Urianger, courtesy of a well-wishing benefactor. Urianger is relieved to see them safe alongside Papashan and Pippin, as Syndicate member Dulala enters and explains she is the one who arranged their carriage and this meeting. She reveals they have all been unknowing actors in an elaborate ruse conceived to eliminate Teleji, who was intending to truly assassinate the Sultana, but Lolorito caught wind of this and exploited the situation for his own benefit. Thanks to his intervention, he managed to actually kill 2 birds with 1 stone, having Raoban kill a dangerous rival, compromising himself as a result, all while Lolorito escaped suspicion himself. As it were, the Sultana's handmaiden was also on his payroll, switching Teleji's deadly poison for a sedative that would merely put her in a death-like sleep. Raoban is both relieved to hear this and outraged at being used, but Dulala points out that even though Lolorito is underhanded and power-hungry, the fact still remains that he saved Nanamo, even if for selfish reasons. As for herself, she doesn't care for Raoban's feud with the Monetarists, but does care to see order restored to Ul'dah, which moved her to supply the Domans with information and secure their arrival here. As Raoban is told to focus on locating the sleeping Sultana now, Alphino receives an urgent call back to Ishgard as the Dravanians have resumed their siege, forced to leave matters with their allies here. Though Count Edmont informs them they are not obligated to defend the city as guests, Alphino and the Warrior of Light insist on helping their host in their hour of need. The Scion doesn't think Ishgard is well prepared to weather another storm of dragons, wondering if diplomacy is an option with Iceheart, thinking to at least try and convince her to dissuade Nidhogg from his warpath. Hearing this plan, the Azure Dragoon Estinian wishes to come along. He points out even if their plans for parley fail, it buys Ishgard more time to prepare, and even beyond that, between himself and the Warrior of Light, they might even be able to slay Nidhogg now. He also adds they should keep specifics from Emmerich, as the Lord Commander would otherwise be accused of consorting with heretics, while Emmerich agrees to prevent any preemptive strikes for now. Heading out, Tataru prepares a new outfit for Alphino before he goes, and together they locate Izael and tell her they wish to talk. She replies they don't know the truth behind the Dravanian animosity, and so their plan to talk down Needhogg will fail. Elaborating, she recounts how over 1,000 years ago an Ellison tribe arrived in Kurthis to claim it as a new home, clashing with the dragonkind that were already settled there. One woman named Shiva attempted to parley, and in doing so found the dragons profoundly intelligent and rational creatures, growing so close to the great worm Hraesvelgr to fall in love with him. The near-immortal dragon also found a soulmate in Shiva, but knew her short lifespan would be fleeting compared to his. To this, Shiva asked him to consume her so their spirits would be together forever, and reluctantly he did so, as the tale of their ill-fated love spread throughout the warring factions, inspiring them to lay down arms and broker peace. In the aftermath, man and dragon learned to coexist in harmony, building a new nation together that would know peace for 200 years. However, word also spread the worms owe their longevity to the power in their eyes, and one day a traitorous band of knights would take from Needhogg one of his eyes, spurring him to unleash his wormlings as revenge until he gets it back. Estinian pauses her, saying she is incorrect on that point, pulling out Needhogg's eye and explaining the great worm used to pursue him relentlessly, but is now ignoring him and is fixated on Ishgard for some reason. He adds he can sense Needhogg's feelings through the eyes, saying the dragon is beyond reason and simply wishes to quench its thirst for revenge with the blood of Ishgard. Alphino wonders if they cannot speak to Needhogg, perhaps they can speak to Hraesvelgr instead, and an amused Izael agrees to take them to Dravania to meet him. Suddenly, a familiar pang hits the Warrior of Light as one of their crystals is rekindled once more. The road westward to the ancient home of dragonkind, Sam-Al, is long as Estinian and Izael aggravate each other the entire way. Along the way, they encounter the insectile beast tribe called the Nath and pass by ruins that seem Ishgardian in architecture, yet reflect a time when they indeed lived alongside dragons in peace. Before they can catch Hraesvelgr's perch, they must first gain entry with permission, meeting with Izael's ally Vidofnir, who says they cannot pass so long as the Nath's god is a threat. Hearing the Nath have summoned a primal, Alphino steps forward, offering to earn passage should they eliminate the primal threat themselves. Vidofnir doubts they can succeed but allows it, as the group thinks the appearance of a primal explains the recent Nath aggression onto dragons recently. Wishing to learn more, they speak with a friendly settlement of Nath outcasts called the Vath that trades with local hunters, who explain they are disconnected from and therefore rejected by the hive mind of the main colony of the Nath. The Vath reveal men in black coats approach the Nath and show them how to summon their deity to fight the dragons and expand their territory, but found their god's appetite insatiable. Entering the main Nath colony, Izael and the Warrior of Light offer themselves as sacrifices, finding themselves face to face with Ravana, master of the Sacred Blades. Izael immediately transforms into Shiva and fights the primal but finds her strength falls short. Finishing the fight, the Warrior of Light dispels the primal after a fierce battle, but their victory is spied upon by another Ascian named Igeorm, who promises things aren't over. Returning to Vidofnir with their win and assurance the Nath will withdraw from their territory, the dragon is impressed and, as promised, guides them to the summit of Sam-Al. Passing through the sacred land, they are forced to defeat its guardian, Needhogg's consort Tiamin, who does not welcome the intruders, and in doing so, the Warrior of Light finds another crystal of theirs relit. Estini is staggered by a sudden font of fury leaking through the eye, though remains in control as the group sees they are the first visitors in over a millennia. Wondering where Hraesvelgr is from here, they spot a Moogle nearby, thinking it may know where the Great Worm is, but it flees on sight. Visiting Gridania and their resident Moogle ally Kuplokop, they affirm their ancestors came from the sky, and Kane Senna wishes to accompany them as an ambassador, familiar with Moogles herself. The Elder Seedseer succeeds in opening dialogue with the chieftain Moglin, who is fascinated to see a Moogle from the world below, and explains they hid from the smell of blood emanating from their warriors, not trusting the group. Kane Senna's diplomacy opens relations between both parties as the adventurer works to foster and grow the friendship. Earning the Moogles' trust through various tasks, they also hear about an old legendary slam-dancing, lance-wielding Moogle named Mog, as Moglin admits he's okay with anyone already friends with a Moogle and just wanted to waste their time with chores no one else wanted to do. In exchange, he gives them a horn that will call Hraesvelgr when they want to talk, telling them to blow it at the Worm's palace in the west. Kane Senna and Kuplokop take their leave as the group heads to Zenith and makes camp, reflecting on how each of them have been ignorant to some degree in their convictions, and the struggle it is to replace firmly rooted beliefs in the face of new knowledge. Sounding the horn, the Great Worm responds, none too pleased to see the mortals, showing he is missing an eye and merely waiting to waste away. Izael reveals she has summoned Shiva's soul and offered her body as Shiva's vessel, knowing her heart, though Hraesvelgr is offended to hear his beloved's name come out of her mouth. The worm rejects she is Shiva reborn, thinking Izael is simply delusional from glimpsing the past thanks to her gift. He adds the spirit she conjured is not truly Shiva, but a phantom of her, pointing out many dragons have done the same in the past, thinking they summoned Bahamut only for the spirit to merely resemble him, constructed by their faith. As he reveals the spirit within her is not Shiva, but a godlike power of her own wishful thinking made in her image, Yzael stumbles to swallow this revelation. Alphinaud says that spirits aside, Yzael's wish to heal the rift between dragon and man and end the war is real, and chuckling, Hraesvelgr wonders if they would still think forgiveness is possible if they knew the real truth of the past. 1200 years ago, Shiva's sacrifice indeed brought an end to the war between dragon and man, and for 200 years there was peace until the Elezen learned a dragon's eyes were the wellspring of their power. Coveting this strength, King Thoradin conspired to rally his most loyal knights to lure out the dragon Ratatoskr and then ambushed and killed her. Carving out her eyes, they feasted upon them, gaining immense power beyond normal mortals, as the first to learn of the betrayal was Nidhogg, who declared vengeance immediately. Nidhogg would kill Thoradin and many of the knights, but would still lose in the battle, forced away and marking the beginning of the Dragonsong War. Estinian claims this version of the start of the war is very different from the version the Holy See tells, demanding proof. In response, Hraesvelgr points out the reason so many Elezen transform into dragons when ingesting just a sip of dragon blood is because they all carry traces of Ratatoskr's essence in them thanks to their traitorous ancestors. Through death or defection, Nidhogg intends to end all of Thoradin's descendants, and the group is horrified to think how many of the dragons they have slain were former Ishgardians. Estinian now understands why Nidhogg simply doesn't burn the city to the ground, acknowledging this is a slow, deliberate vengeance for his sister and not a mere war to be won. The worm adds it's easy for them to ask forgiveness because they weren't there and did not commit the sin, having nothing more to say in taking his leave. Seeing their quest for peace was doomed from the start, Estinian proclaims he intends to continue to Nidhogg's lair, the Eyrie, and slay the Great Worm. Leaving Yzael to her shattered fate, they see the Eyrie is warded by a wind barrier, leading them to once again seek the assistance of Cid to break through. Needing something small and agile enough to avoid the Dravanians, Cid introduces them to Biggs and Wedge's newest project of the successor to the tiny Bronco, the Mana Cutter, which can take advantage of the dense wind-aspected ether. Just then, Tataru bursts in, saying the Sultana has been found and Raubahn prepares to rescue her, as the adventurer hurries to make good on helping his friend. Shocked to be met by Lolorito, the merchant explains Telegi's Cartano reclamation bill was just a facade for him to get his hands on the Allagan weapon, Omega, and when he learned Nanamo intended to abdicate the throne, assassination seemed the best way to continue this ambition. In truth, Telegi had found a maid whose bloodline would have had uncontested claim to the throne, and he intended to use her as the new puppet. Feeling Telegi had grown too uncontrollable, Lolorito confesses he sabotaged the assassination and allowed Telegi to seal his own demise. He adds Ilberd knew the truth the whole time too, and was used to prime Raubahnn's rage, appreciating the general unknowingly lending a hand, though subsequently losing it. He is also proud to have rigged the crystal brace from the start, leveraging Ilberd's obsession with freeing Alamigo. However, Ilberd wanted Raubahn dead, and Lolorito did not, resulting in the two of them splitting. Bringing things to today, Lolorito points out that thanks to him, both Nanamo and Raubahn are alive, Ilberd is a fugitive, and preparations are made to restore the general's name. Asking to let go of water under the bridge and start with a blank slate, Raubahn spits back he cannot forgive nor forget Lolorito's treason, but Dulala cuts him off, saying Raubahn also murdered a syndicate member without trial, making him a criminal too. As conciliation, Lolorito gives Raubahn the potion needed to wake the Sultana, telling him she is safe in her bedchambers in the palace, and even offering to accompany them as a hostage in good faith. Outplayed and letting go of his anger, Raubahn states that while he doesn't like his motives, he sincerely thanks Lolorito for saving the Sultana, and with this, he is reinstated as Flame General. Overwhelmed with joy and relief, Raubahn welcomes Nanamo as she wakes up from her long slumber and happily reports to everyone she is in perfect health. Though she likely will still abdicate the throne, Lolorito loudly states that is noble and all, but questions if now is the right time to turn their government over, given new actions stirring up in the Empire. He reveals intelligence that the Garleans have been constructing a new warship on the scale of the Agrius, and it just completed its maiden flight. He now urges Ul'dah to make preparations for the likely aggression of Emperor Volus, and to himself, Alphinaud declares the failed Crystal Braze to be disbanded. While there are many who sincerely believed in and fought for their cause, it is undeniable traitors like Ilberd need to be hunted down and made to pay for their crimes. Returning to Revenant's Toll, Alphinaud gathers what Crystal Braves remain, Alianne and Riol among them, and thanks them for their service, apologizing for the mess that occurred under his failed leadership. Riol speaks for all of them, saying regardless, this bond they forged won't be disbanded, and they have every intention of upholding their oaths and working in service of the Scions now. Overcome by emotion, Alphinaud is speechless at their loyalty, swearing to do right by them going forward. Returning now to Ishgard, the adventurer joins Estinian in updating Emmerich, who is shocked by the revelations they learned. The Dragoon also bluntly tells Alphino and the Lord Commander that despite their objections, they will not be joining in the fight against Nidhogg, needed here at Ishgard should he and the Warrior of Light fail. Taking to the sky, the Manicutters prove enough to keep up with Nidhogg as Estinian suppresses him with the Eye long enough to land and duel him on their terms. Edging out a win, Estinian deals the critical blow against the hate-filled Great Worm, gouging the dragon so deep his armor is stained red from its blood. Plucking Nidhogg's one eye out, the Great Worm is felled as the Warrior of Light feels another crystal within him rekindle with power. Experiencing a new vision, the adventurer sees the last battle with Nidhogg 1,000 years ago as the surviving knights emerge victorious with both of Nidhogg's eyes in hand. King Thorin's son, Haldrath, would refuse claiming the throne, instead wishing to live his life as a Dragoon Slayer stemming Dravanian vengeance, telling his brother knights to lead Ishgard equally in their wisdom and becoming the kingdom's first Azure Dragoon. A couple of forgotten knights would similarly resign, seeing no more king to serve or wanting simpler lives like serving ale, leaving the 4 knights of Sir Fortam, Sir Eilenar, Sir Durandare, and Sir Zamail to be the 4 houses to rule all of Ishgard. Deciding to keep the throne empty, they also chose to keep the details of his dark day a secret, and they would revise history in the reshaping of their nation. Brought back, the adventurer shares what he saw, and Estinian shares how the first battle of Nidhogg is told by Ishgard, disappointed it was all a lie save for one contradiction. If Haldrath took both red eyes of the Black Dragon, then where did Nidhogg get the yellow eye he just plucked out? He hands the eye to the adventurer for safekeeping, firmly proud to have fought by his side and recognizing his strength. For now, before they return to Ishgard triumphant, he wishes to speak to Hraesvelgr again in light of this new information, finding Izael still there. The Dragoon openly accuses the eye they claimed from Nidhogg just now to actually be Hraesvelgr's missing eye, and the Great Worm confirms this as the Warrior of Light returns it and is hit with another vision from their echo power. Upon his defeat, Nidhogg fled to Hraesvelgr, reporting how the mortals murdered Ratatoskr and devoured her eyes, using their power to poach his eyes as well. Blaming Hraesvelgr's emotions for inviting this disaster, Nidhogg demanded one eye from his brother as penance, intending to use it to execute his revenge, as Hraesvelgr acquiesced, allowing Nidhogg to begin his 1,000 years of warfare on Ishgard. The Great Worm adds he doesn't feel sorry for the suffering mortals, since their greed and treacherous murder is what started all of this, and his eternal love for Shiva is the only reason he spares them now. As they leave, Estinian says there is still another mystery to be solved, as Haldrath took both of Nidhogg's eyes, and yet only one has been passed down to him, wondering where the other one is. They also still have the mystery of why Nidhogg was suddenly assaulting the city directly after all this time. They are suddenly hailed by Emmerich, sharing the good news of their victory, but here a group of heretics is inside the city attacking it, though Izael insists she ordered no such attack. Hurrying back, Orshafan is not pleased to see Iceheart, but sees his friends with her and trusts in their judgment. She tells her forces the Great Worm is dead and the war is over, ordering them to stand down and withdraw peacefully, as Emmerich and Edmont are glad to hear the news. However, the troubling revelation of the truth about the origins of the war and the High Houses would delegitimize much of the Holy Scriptures and the ruling authority in Ishgard. Emmerich thinks to bring this matter to the Archbishop himself, and if they brand him a heretic and do worse, then that proves their true colors. If everyone can trace their lineage back to the original 12 Knights, then that means there is no difference between highborn or lowborn houses, especially since they can all potentially change into dragons, meaning the current government and tenets must be called into question. Izael will no doubt spread the truth anyway, and the disenfranchised will rise up united, causing bloody strife, and a divided Ishgard will fall anyway. Lucia declares if Emmerich doesn't return, she'll challenge the Vault to get him back, pointing out she is not born of Ishgard and reveals Emmerich as the Archbishop's bastard son, so that may help him. Estinian doesn't care about all that, believing his friend is the nation's best hope and refuses to let him die. Orshafan agrees, believing in Emmerich and declaring there is no greater calling for a knight than to save the life of his fellow man. Making preparations, they intend to rally the revolutionaries within the city who will oppose the Holy See anyway and want to see the truth exposed, meeting with their leader, the gun-toting Hilda. Revealing the dirty secrets of the Holy See to them and apprising her of their plan, their meeting is unexpectedly interrupted by the Inquisition, as Sir Sherrybear of the Heavensward charges them all with insurrection. They fend him off for now as Lucia enters and says the ball is already rolling, as Emmerich has been arrested for heresy and the Temple Knights now follow the Heavensward, though about half of them still remain loyal to the Lord Commander. Hilda states if there is a real reform to result from the revolution, then the resistance will render aid. She also adds it was the Heavensward that allowed the heretic attack of the city earlier, hoping to pin it on the resistance to justify their execution as well as any sympathizers. Ready to assault the vault, they beat down Sir Grinno, rescue Emmerich, and pursue the Archbishop, but are intercepted by the condescending Sir Sherrybear again, who ascends into a powerful, larger form. Though he fails to purge them with his holy flame, he does buy time for the Archbishop to escape via airship. Emmerich tries to appeal to his father, but Thornton VII declares him a fool for wanting to tear down the pillars of their society that have stood for over 1,000 years. Seeing their opportunity, the Warrior of Light and Orshifon dash forward together to try and catch the Archbishop, unaware that an empowered Sir Zephyrin was covering his retreat. Forming a concentrated spear of light, he flings a deadly beam at the Warrior of Light, though Orshifon sees it and leaps in to block it with his shield. Unfortunately, his shield is unable to endure the overwhelming attack as it pierces through and impales him, dropping him immediately. As the group rushes to their fallen comrade, the Archbishop and his knights escape, and Alphino is unable to mend the fatal wound. Dying with a smile and glad his friend is safe, Orshifon tells the adventurer a smile better fits a hero as he passes on and the group leaves with a bittersweet victory. Count Edmont mourns deeply for Orshifon's sacrifice as they swear to pursue the fleeing Archbishop, and the adventurer receives another vision wherein the Archbishop confirmed Emmerich's accusation that the Church has long concealed the fact the blood of the 12 flows in all its guardians and man did betray the dragons first for their eyes. However, he adds there is no justice and asking every subsequent generation to pay for the sins of the father with no end in mind. Yes, their founders committed a heinous sin, but that doesn't mean every newbornish guardian must make reparations in vain to a foe that will never forgive them. For this reason, they have rebuilt society to prosper and even be glad to fight the dragons and challenge their fate of eternal punishment. He tells his son every Archbishop has come to the same necessary conclusion to keep the status quo, but he tells him he has a plan now to free them all from the shackles of the past and bring about the change he so desires. Emmerich marvels at the echo power, confirming that is indeed what happened, and believes the strange power the Heavensward used to empower themselves and kill their friend is the same as Iceheart, wherein their absolute faith can call upon a spirit to possess them and fabricate a new power and form. He adds his father fled to Azys Law, somewhere in the Sea of Clouds, though as they look for clues they are surprised to find Imperials attacking Vanu. Saving the Beastmen, it thanks them and leads into a friendly village of Vanu, where Sid spots that the Imperials are hunting down Bismarck. The Vanu chieftain explains Azys Law is a forsaken land with forbidden secrets, where the only key to access it has been swallowed by the White Whale. Wanting to get ahead of both the Imperials and Heavensward, they hunt the Primal down and defeat it, securing the key to Azys Law. The Warrior of Light also rekindles another crystal and now hears fragmented words of the Mother Crystal again, but finds the Archbishop, aided by the Ascians, waiting for him as they steal the key and reveal the location of Azys Law. Regrouping, they are shocked to see Emperor Valis is here personally to claim Azys Law, explaining it holds the secrets of the Allagans' power to bind icons to their will. They are interrupted as Lucia arrives in Magitech armor to force the Emperor away, explaining she has one in the first place because she is also a Garlean, and more than that, the sister of the late Livia who served under Vad Balzar. At first, she was an Imperial spy sent to investigate the vault, but after meeting Emmerich and finding him worth following instead, confessed everything to him and found he still accepted her, earning her unshakable loyalty. Arriving at Azys Law, they are unable to land thanks to an Allagan barrier, and while Sid thinks it's possible to pierce it with a ram, he doesn't know how to build one powerful enough. As they pause to make repairs, their allies share that they discovered Ishtola's broken wand and learn she escaped the collapsed tunnel by converting herself into ether and escaping into the lifestream. With the help of Kanisena and the spirits, they manage to find and extract Ishtola in one piece, who comments she can now perceive the ether around her more keenly than before. After being updated on everything since the assassination attempt, she recommends her former master and leading Sharlayan scholar in etheric research, Matoya, as someone who can help build their ram. Still residing in the ruins of a Sharlayan colony after most of the residents fled back to the mainland, they find their old home has now been settled in by a tribe of friendly goblins and local treasure hunters who have mostly upkept the city, now named Idleshire. Arriving at Matoya's cave, they inform the old witch on their plight, as she adds Azys Law was a research facility set afloat when the Allagan Empire was collapsing that discovered ways to control mighty beings like dragons and primals. As for their barrier problem, she once developed an etheric converger they can use, having them pry the research from the Guardian of the Forbidden section of the Great Google Library, wherein its defeat relights another crystal for the adventurer. Before they leave with the information they came for, Matoya notices Ishtola is actually blind now, and the young mage affirms this, saying it is likely a side effect from returning from the lifestream. As Sid sets to work on building the ram, the adventurer visits the Forton Manor where Edmond gives him Orshifon's broken shield as a memento to carry into the battle to come, telling him he sees the shining hope he represents that his son always saw. Before casting off on the newly upgraded Enterprise Excelsior, Urianger gives him a white auracite he found, and as the team approaches the barrier, the ether provided by Needhog's eye is more than enough to form a powerful drill capable of piercing the heavens. However, waiting for them to open the door for them were the Imperials, as they now seek to shoot the Excelsior down. Just then, Izael, riding atop Hraesvelgr, flies in as she assumes her Shiva form and provides cover for them to escape. Forming a massive spike, she rams into the warship, crippling it, though in an exchange of munitions she falls, thanking the Warrior of Light for showing her the way as she shatters and dissolves into ether. Seeing another comrade sacrificed, the group lands on Azys Law, using a terminal to see a regulation facility for the Warring Triad test subjects is bursting with energy. They spot the Imperial warship nearby dock for repairs as its commander tries to stall them, but the group holds them off as they send the Warrior of Light ahead with Needhog's eye. Midgard-Sormer notes this facility made Dragonkind suffer for over 5,000 years as they discover the mighty Tiamat still bound here. She explains she is of her father's first brood, in which he bore 7 eggs that all hatched and spread across the land. She and Bahamut paired up, though the Allag would kill him and her children before the Ascians would approach her with an offer to resurrect him. In her grief she agreed, but what they brought back was a dark mockery of Bahamut, and worse, the Ascians gave the Allag the means to entrap him. As such, she is content to remain here and regret her decision, warning the adventurer what they call gods are specters in the mind's creations, given form at great cost to Hydaelyn, and so they must vanquish the Ascians to stop them. With this, the final crystal shines bright again within the Warrior of Light, now able to hear the Mother Crystal's voice clearly and receive her blessing. Seeing this, Midgard-Sormer is impressed they were able to break down his barrier and prove themselves worthy of the light again, assuming a larger form and offering to carry the adventurer into battle. Cutting through the experiment still held in the research lab, the Warrior of Light faces down not only La Habrea but also Egeorm, as they declare their Lord Zodiark will be born again, and through the joining, the world will return to how it once was. Fending off both at once, the Ascians declare they will display the true power of the Echo, the ability to break down barriers of existence, fusing into one super powerful Ascian Prime. Regardless, the Light's blessing cuts down their most powerful darkness, defeating the fusion and separating the two again. Egeorm suggests they flee for now, but before they can, the Warrior of Light hurls the white auracite at her, sealing her within, and using the massive ether from Needhog, blasts her away, destroying her for good. La Habrea spits out the adventurer lacks the ether to unmake him too, but at this time the Archbishop enters with a coffin in tow, revealing inside is the preserved body of the first Azure Dragoon, Haldrath. He had fused with the missing second eye of Needhog, being consumed by it, and had been safe kept all this time. Gathering ether, the Archbishop now summons the soul of the first King Thordan, using his own body as a vessel to become a primal. Transforming the eye and body of Haldrath, Thordan forms a mighty blade of ether, annihilating La Habrea with a single swing. Declaring he will now end the Dragon War, God King Thordan dares the Warrior of Light to defy his primal form, as he summons all 12 of his Heavensward, and each knight unleashes their full power, ascending into new forms as well. God King Thordan declares he fights for peace and to end the suffering of his people, and spits back the adventurer would see them struggle with bitter truths instead. They clash, and against a king sustained by 1,000 years of faith alongside his mighty knights of the round, the Warrior of Light edges out a win, stunning the Archbishop in his defeat. Dying, he looks on the darkness that surrounds the adventurer, wondering what he really is, as his dreams of a new world order die with him. Estinian now catches up with him, seeing he's too late to help, but claims the second Needhog eye all the same, relieved his journey is over now too. Just then, dark power seizes the Dragoon as Needhog's spirit lashes out, stating he lowered his guard all too soon, as with both eyes together and his blood-drenched armor, he claims Estinian as his new vessel, transforming him into another Needhog. The facility begins to collapse as Midgard-Sormer flies the adventurer away, and the group returns safely to Ishgard, relaying their victory. Bowing before Midgard-Sormer, Emmerich says they are committed to working with the dragons for peace now, and the dragon holds him to that. Even though Estinian has become the new Needhog, they will not lose faith against this new trial, and wishing them well, Midgard-Sormer takes his leave. As the sun rises on a new day, the Eorzean Alliance holds a ceremony to welcome Ishgard back as a member, standing united against the Garlean Empire. Privately, the Warrior of Light, Alphino and Tataru give thanks at the grave of their friend Horshaphon, who helped them so much when they were so low and gave even more. Though 1,000 years of war cannot be ended in a day, with the leadership of Emmerich and the hopeful yet cautious citizens of Ishgard following him, the new generations can be inspired to strive heavensward. Meanwhile, Elidibus acknowledges 2 more Ascians have fallen, and worse, the Warrior of Light's power has grown too much and needs balance. Turning to a mysterious dark warrior, he says it's time for them to intervene as they look at the world from upon the moon. Elsewhere, outside Idleshire, Sid and Y'shtola witness a new primal emerge, the Colossal Alexander, but it stops moving just after it's summoned. Y'shtola states it's currently absorbing all ether in the area around it, and if left alone will turn the region into a barren wasteland. Neighboring Idleshire is a mechanically minded goblin tribe called the Illuminati, who fanatically wish to own and hoard all technology for themselves, who seem to be the ones who summoned the primal into an old Charlian defense mechanism. Not thrilled to be bypassing yet another barrier, the group is met by a treasure hunter named Mage who offers to get them inside in exchange for something in particular inside the primal. She cracks the code as the group heads in to crack the core of the machine, halted by QuickThinks, the leader of the Illuminati, who calls out to Mage she won't find something called the Enigma Codex and they have already started the Alexander Initiative. She explains the Codex is a century-old book containing the life's works of one of the greatest technologists to ever live, including one for a walking citadel, which is the form the Illuminati's primal assumed. Completely self-sustained and able to facilitate the world's greatest scholars, Alexander was to be a utopia, now home to a sect of goblins who feels technology should be reserved for the select few, with an ether-guzzling primal that will drain the world dry. Making it to the core, they disable it, though QuickThinks doesn't mind, as his true objective was distracting them while he raided Idleshire for a fragment of Codex that turns out to have been in possession of a young goblin who also has the rare ability to read it named Roundrocks. Indeed, only one core was disabled, as another stirs to life and reveals another section of the mobile fortress. Later, Wedge spots Mide handing their core fragment to the Illuminati, and they then learn Mide was actually one of the treasure hunters who tried and failed to summon Alexander 3 years ago. When they confront her, she shares she handed them a decoy to prevent them from attacking the city and has the true fragment with her, but confesses she was working with them prior as she is the one who taught them how to summon the primal. She also reveals her ancestor is the author of the Codex, and since then her tribe was trying to realize its ideals of a perfect world. When they summoned Alexander, it wiped out her group and absorbed the man she loved into its core, which is when she raised the barrier around it and the Codex shattered. Since then, she has been trying to rebuild the Codex and summon the primal in the hope of seeing her beloved again, as someone who can read the complete Codex can control the machine. Knowing this, QuickThinks kidnaps Roundrocks and the group fights through more machines in the cavernous primal to rescue her, making sure not to look at epic explosions of their fallen foes. As each section has its own core, they disable this one as well, but QuickThinks manages to wrest the real stone from Mide, completing the Enigma Codex. Strangely, their allies claim almost no time passed outside during their mission, as it seems time stops inside the barrier, and what more, if the Illuminati figured out this phenomena and how to manipulate it, it would explain their bizarre ability to see a small bit into the future. Confirming this, they witness time itself rewinding inside the barrier, as the Illuminati reverse the inner cores, and within, finish reconstructing the Enigma Codex, using an imprisoned Roundrocks to decipher it. Once fully powered, QuickThinks declares they will use time to reshape the world into their own paradise, and Mide later affirms traversing time and space is the true power of Alexander. Later, they take down an Illuminati spy, as it is accompanied by QuickThinks' pet Curl, who communicates to the group it is actually displaced in time since the first summoning 3 years ago. Mide also mentions an Assi named Travanchet was the one to give her a horn that would summon the primal, and Y'shtola recognizes the horn to be the lost relic of the ancients able to manipulate etheric energy, as she was once tasked to find the horn and never did. Storming the control room, they don't see QuickThinks but do see Roundrocks seeking to free her, but the goblin empathizes with Mide's wish to see the one she lost 3 years ago, activating the primal and transports everyone back to the past. Arriving when Mide's group was summoning Alexander, it is QuickThinks' group that kills her friends, as events play out as they have before, which the goblin explains is a closed time loop, for the Alexander appearance of the past was just the traveling Alexander from the future. Fighting their way to the main core, they see it's growing faster than they can dismantle it, and discover the journal QuickThinks has been using to predict the future is the same one they have been using to chronicle this mission, so they are not predicting the future so much as reading a past yet to happen. QuickThinks shows he is able to manipulate the Codex himself, attempting to freeze them all in time and easily kill them there, but they are somehow free just in time to barely dodge the deadly attack. Fighting Alexander within a distortion of time, it seems the primal has a mind of its own, rendering holy judgment on them all. During the fight, the adventurer enters another time distortion and frees themselves in the past from being killed by Alexander prior. Proving that they choose their own future and not the other way around, Mide shoots down QuickThinks, and Roundrocks quickly commands Alexander to shut itself down. Thanks to his cybernetics, QuickThinks survives his headshot and tries to reverse time again, but for some reason his access is denied. Instead, Alexander fries QuickThinks, killing him while the Enigma Codex explodes in the struggle. Mage realizes Alexander doesn't just have a mind of its own, but the mind of her lost love, and the machine speaks to her as its core rages out of control without the codex to regulate it. Wishing to be with him, she thanks the group for their help and throws herself into the core, being absorbed and entering the same realized simulation within the machine's heart. She learns it is a space Alexander can see the past, present, and future of infinite possibilities, but the machine found that by its own design it consumes so much ether that any world it would reshape it would also ruin, and therefore, removing itself would be the only logical conclusion. For this world, Alexander saw the fate of the world would fall into the hands of the Warrior of Light and, with his divine judgment, chose to believe in that adventurer. Alexander sent the Clockwork Curl to help break the time loop it was in, and the only way to seal the core which has fused with the horn is to place it in a small pocket dimension with them inside forever. Happy to be with her love for all time, Mage agrees, as outside Alexander is frozen in time, unable to bother anyone anymore. As the chapter ends, their goblin friend discovers a fairy tale that shows Mage and her lover would one day escape from their fate, be born in the past, and create their own tribe together, and they agree that, fable or not, it's a beginning and an ending they want to believe is true. During this point of the game, Final Fantasy XIV Heavensward has enjoyed the success of having over 5 million players worldwide.
A smile better suits a hero.
And thank you for showing me the way.
That power remains to us, at least.
You would raise a hand against us?
What are you